Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to speak to you not about easy answers or comforting illusions, but about something far more profound, though at times uncomfortable. The reality of what it means to be truly good in a world that is anything but simple. We live in a society that tells us, often from a very young age, that goodness is something to be attained, something pure, something flawless. The idea is to strive for a version of ourselves that is always upright, always virtuous, always good. Yet in this pursuit, we often overlook a fundamental truth about human nature. Goodness is not a static achievement, nor is it a matter of simply adhering to the rules. True goodness requires something deeper, something far more honest than what we usually allow ourselves to see. It requires the courage to confront what we wish to ignore, the parts of ourselves we fear, the aspects of our psyche we would rather deny. Let me introduce you to an idea that might challenge your view of what it means to be a good person. Embrace your shadow. We all have a shadow, a part of ourselves that we hide away. It contains our fears, our desires, our anger, and the darker impulses that we would prefer not to acknowledge. Yet, it is not by running from these elements that we grow. In fact, the more we deny our shadow, the more it controls us, festering beneath the surface, driving us in ways we do not fully understand. The truth is, to become whole, we must acknowledge these darker aspects of our personality, not to indulge them, but to integrate them. Only by facing what is hidden within us can we find the balance between light and dark that is necessary for true transformation. There is a powerful paradox here. Light cannot exist without darkness. We often see goodness as the opposite of evil, but in reality these forces are inextricably tied. The struggle between good and evil is not external, it is internal. It is the struggle within each of us. And to deny this is to live in denial of ourselves. To be truly good, we must acknowledge that we too have the capacity for harm. By recognizing this, we gain a more profound and compassionate understanding of others. We cease to judge the world around us with simplistic notions of right and wrong, and instead we come to see that true goodness involves embracing our own complexities. But perhaps the hardest truth to accept is this: the courage to be authentic is essential to becoming a truly good person. It is easy to put on a mask, to wear the veneer of righteousness, to follow the crowd and conform to the expectations placed upon us. But in doing so, we lose ourselves. True goodness is not a performance. It is an embodiment of who we really are, imperfections and contradictions alike. To be authentic is to admit that we are not perfect, that we carry wounds, flaws, and a history that shapes us. It is to face our vulnerabilities head on, to acknowledge our weaknesses without shame. It is to live in the tension between who we are and who we aspire to be, knowing that growth is a journey, not a destination. In this journey you will be confronted with the darkness both in yourself and in the world. It will challenge you, test you, and sometimes even break you. But in embracing it, you will discover a deeper, truer sense of what it means to be good. You will find that goodness is not about perfection. It is about wholeness. It is about accepting yourself fully, shadow and all, and choosing every day to act in alignment with your truest nature. So my message to you today is simple yet profound. Do not be afraid of the darkness. Do not shy away from the parts of yourself that make you uncomfortable, for in facing them you will discover the light that lies within. And in that light you will find the courage to be authentic, to be real, and ultimately to be the person you were always meant to be. True goodness begins not in the pursuit of perfection, but in the acceptance of all that we are, including the parts of ourselves we most often wish to reject. Among the most important aspects of this acceptance is coming to terms with what has been termed our shadow, the unconscious part of our psyche that harbors everything we perceive as negative, wrong, or unworthy. These are the desires, impulses, and characteristics we typically avoid, repress, suppress or deny because they don't fit into the image of who we believe we should be. The shadow holds our insecurities, our rage, our envy, our greed, and all those aspects of ourselves we wish would remain hidden. But the more we avoid or suppress these darker parts of ourselves, the more they take control, often surfacing in unexpected ways through bursts of anger, subtle feelings of jealousy, or self-destructive behaviors we don't fully understand. It's easy to think that goodness is the act of striving for virtue and denying the darker side of our nature. We are taught from an early age to be good people, to be kind, generous and considerate, but in this pursuit of being good, we may fall into the trap of avoiding the parts of ourselves that we deem unacceptable, choosing to live as if we are only one-dimensional beings. This approach, however, leaves us in conflict with our inner selves. The darker parts of us do not simply disappear because we refuse to acknowledge them. They remain buried beneath the surface, sometimes even influencing our behavior in ways that are entirely outside our conscious awareness. The more we repress them, the more power they have over us. The truth is that we cannot be whole, truly integrated and authentic without confronting our shadows. To do so doesn't mean embracing every dark impulse we encounter. Rather, it means accepting that these aspects are part of our human experience. Only when we accept that the light and dark coexist within us can we hope to achieve true personal growth. The act of recognizing and embracing our shadow involves being honest with ourselves about who we are in our entirety, not just the parts we're proud of or the traits we feel comfortable sharing with the world, but the parts we hide out of fear or shame. Integrating the shadow is a difficult process. It requires vulnerability and courage. We must be willing to look deeply within, to ask ourselves what we are hiding, and to be willing to face the emotions and impulses that arise when we confront these hidden parts of ourselves. It means being willing to ask hard questions. Why do I feel jealous when others succeed? What does my anger tell me about my unmet needs or unresolved frustrations? Why do I act out in certain situations, even when I know it isn't in line with my values? These questions, although uncomfortable, are the path toward understanding and integrating the shadow. When we choose to face our darker side, we begin to experience true freedom. We no longer live in fear of our own emotions or the things about ourselves we don't want to acknowledge. Instead, we develop the ability to recognize our flaws, to own them, and to choose consciously how we wish to act in response. Far from diminishing our goodness, this process strengthens it. By accepting the parts of ourselves that we once judged harshly, we expand our capacity for compassion, both for ourselves and for others. We come to understand that everyone harbors a shadow, and in embracing our own, we are better equipped to accept others with their imperfections as well. Ultimately, confronting our shadow is an act of self-empowerment. It is the key to becoming whole, to living authentically and fully. Goodness is not about perfection, but about understanding and accepting the complexities of our human nature. Only through embracing our shadow can we transcend the limitations of pretending to be something we are not, and in doing so, become more truly ourselves. The concept of light and darkness is often presented as a simple dichotomy, with light symbolizing goodness and darkness representing evil. However, this perspective oversimplifies the complexity of human nature. In reality, light and dark are not opposites in a strict sense, but are deeply interwoven and interdependent. To view goodness as purely light is to misunderstand the very nature of what it means to be human. Goodness does not emerge from a place of total purity, nor is it disconnected from the darkness that resides within us all. In fact, it is precisely through recognizing and understanding the darkness that we can cultivate a deeper, more authentic sense of goodness. It is common to see goodness as a part of righteousness, where those who are good are inherently virtuous and free of vice. But such a view fails to account for the complexities of the human soul. Each person carries the capacity for both good and evil within them. To deny this duality is to live in a false sense of moral superiority, unaware of the ways in which our darker impulses may silently influence our actions. The truth is that goodness is not an absence of darkness, but an ongoing process of integrating both sides of ourselves. It is the recognition that we are never purely one thing. Rather, we are a constant negotiation between competing desires, values, and impulses. Goodness, when understood as a balance between light and dark, reveals a more realistic and compassionate view of human nature. It teaches us to accept our flaws and contradictions without judgment. We cannot always act perfectly, and we cannot always live up to our ideals. In the moments when we fall short, when we act out of jealousy or anger, or when we struggle with feelings of inadequacy, these are not signs that we have failed to be good. They are merely part of the broader human experience. The presence of darkness within us does not diminish our capacity for goodness. Rather, it enhances it by allowing us to understand ourselves and others with greater empathy and compassion. Furthermore, acknowledging the darkness within us enables us to make more conscious choices. It allows us to take responsibility for our actions and motivations rather than blaming external forces or pretending that our darker tendencies do not exist. By accepting the full spectrum of our nature, we stop living in denial of our potential for harm. We begin to see the subtle ways in which our shadow can influence our behavior. Through defensiveness, pride, or unspoken resentment. This awareness is the first step toward real moral agency, as it enables us to choose how we respond to the darkness when it emerges. The paradox of light and dark is not just philosophical, it is practical. The integration of both aspects of ourselves makes us more effective in our relationships and our decision making. It means that we no longer operate from a place of naivety or idealism, but from a grounded understanding of the complexity of human motivations. Acknowledging that we all harbor the potential for harm allows us to relate to others in a more authentic way. We become less quick to judge and more willing to listen, knowing that everyone is navigating their own internal struggle between light and dark. Authenticity is often seen as a trait of the bold, the unashamed, and those who have fully embraced their true selves without fear of judgment. Yet, in a world where social pressures, expectations, and the desire for approval are ever present, authenticity can feel like a rare and difficult virtue to embody. It's much easier to conform, to present a version of ourselves that fits neatly into the roles society has set out for us. But there is something deeply hollow in living a life of pretense. The true courage to be authentic comes when we stop hiding behind masks and begin to confront the parts of ourselves we might be afraid to show the world. To be authentic is to be vulnerable. It requires us to accept that we are not perfect, that we are messy, complex beings with contradictions, flaws, and contradictions that make us human. We live in a world where it is so easy to curate an image of ourselves that fits the expectations of others. We wear the right clothes and say the right things and follow the behaviors and norms that are considered acceptable. But this is not real. It is a performance, one that demands a constant level of energy to maintain, and that over time can leave us feeling disconnected from who we really are. When we fail to show our true selves, we start to feel a sense of inner conflict. The more we hide parts of ourselves, our true feelings, desires, and vulnerabilities, the more we create an inner tension. On the surface, we might appear composed, calm, and even virtuous, but inside there is a gnawing sense of incompleteness, of inauthenticity. This gap between who we are and who we present to the world can lead to feelings of alienation, anxiety, and even depression. The more we bury our true selves, the more we lose our sense of purpose and our ability to connect with others on a deeper level. The courage to be authentic is not an easy path. It asks us to face the parts of ourselves that we've long avoided, to acknowledge our weaknesses, our fears, and our mistakes. It asks us to show up in the world as we truly are, without the mask of perfection. It asks us to let go of the need for constant approval and external validation. When we choose authenticity, we stop seeking perfection and instead embrace our imperfections as part of what makes us whole. This is not to say we should indulge in harmful behaviors or aim for self-sabotage, but rather we should understand that our flaws are part of our identity, and acknowledging them can actually make us stronger and more relatable to others. Authenticity also requires us to accept the fact that we will not always be understood or accepted by others. When we reveal our true selves, we make ourselves vulnerable to criticism, rejection, and even judgment. But the key is that through authenticity, we open the door to genuine connections. We begin to attract people who resonate with who we truly are, rather than those who are attracted only to the version of ourselves we've carefully constructed. In embracing authenticity, we allow ourselves the freedom to form relationships that are real, meaningful, and based on mutual understanding and acceptance. This authenticity fosters a sense of inner peace, as we no longer feel the need to constantly protect or hide who we are. In the long run, living authentically brings a profound sense of integrity. It's a way of being in a world that feels true to ourselves and our values, regardless of external pressures. It is about living with intention, being honest with ourselves about who we are, and honoring our deepest desires and motivations. The courage to be authentic doesn't come from the absence of fear, but from the willingness to act despite it. It requires a level of self-trust and self-respect that grows over time, as we repeatedly choose to show up as our real selves, flaws, contradictions, and all. Ultimately, this path leads to a deeper connection with ourselves and others, one that is rooted in truth, understanding, and acceptance. In conclusion, the journey toward true goodness is not a simple, straightforward path, nor is it one that can be defined by external standards of perfection. It is a journey of integration, of embracing both light and darkness within ourselves, of confronting our deepest fears and flaws with honesty and courage. Goodness is not about denying our shadow or pretending that we are free from imperfection. Rather, it is about acknowledging and accepting every part of ourselves, both the noble and the flawed, and learning to live in harmony with our complexities. To be truly good is to have the strength to face the darker aspects of our nature, to understand that our capacity for harm is just as real as our capacity for kindness. It is to accept that light and darkness are not opposing forces, but rather two halves of the same whole. And through this acceptance, we unlock a deeper compassion, not only for ourselves, but for others as well. Furthermore, the courage to be authentic is central to this process. It is easy to hide behind masks, to conform to the expectations of others. But true goodness requires the bravery to show up as our genuine selves. It requires us to embrace vulnerability, to shed the illusions of perfection, and to live with integrity, trusting that in being authentic we will find both peace within ourselves and meaningful connections with the world around us. Goodness, then, is not a state to be reached, but a continual practice of growth, self-awareness, and honest self-acceptance. It is a commitment to live with both the light and the darkness in our hearts, and to choose the path of authenticity, even when it is difficult. In embracing this truth, we discover that the greatest act of goodness is not the absence of flaw, but the courage to be whole. Thank you.